Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay updated with our latest videos. In this remarkable 1960s photo, we see a group of trainees taking a typing test while wearing masks over their eyes, preventing them from seeing the keys. This technique was used to help typists develop tactile memory, enhancing their speed and accuracy when typing without looking at the keyboard. Next, we travel back to December 5th, 1933, the day Prohibition was repealed in the United States. This photo captures the excitement and relief in a crowded bar as people celebrate the end of the 13-year ban on alcohol sales. Glasses raised in the air, the joyful faces express the public's eagerness to return to legal, social gatherings involving alcoholic beverages. Here we see a key moment from the highly publicized 1995 trial of O.J. Simpson, who was accused of the murder of his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson. One pivotal point in the trial was the demonstration of the gloves found at the crime scene, which did not fit Simpson. This led the defense attorney to make the famous statement, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit," a line that became central to Simpson's eventual acquittal, sparking widespread debate and media attention. This next image is a drawing by a young child from Kabul, Afghanistan, in the early 2000s. The drawing reflects the harsh realities of life during a period of conflict, depicting scenes of violence that marked the experience of many children in the region at the time. Moving to the early 20th century, we encounter a haunting image from the Russian famine of 1921. This famine affected millions across the Soviet Union, including this young boy from the Zaporizhia region of Ukraine, who was tragically driven to desperate measures due to the severe lack of food. The famine remains one of the most devastating humanitarian crises of the era, with countless lives lost. Next, a nostalgic moment from Glasgow, Scotland, in 1955. A lamplighter is pictured lighting a gas lamp on the street. Before electric street lighting became the norm, lamplighters were responsible for illuminating cities at night, using long poles to light and extinguish gas lamps, a profession that became obsolete with the advent of electricity. We now look at a photo of the tragic climb of Stefano Lonhi on the north face of the Eiger in the Swiss Alps, taken in 1957. Lonhi's heroic attempt ended in tragedy as he succumbed to exposure after being trapped in an extremely precarious position on the mountain. Despite rescue efforts, he passed away, and his body remained on the mountain for over 2 years before it was recovered. The final photograph we'll discuss today is one of Nikola Tesla, taken just days before his death in January 1943. Tesla, known for his groundbreaking contributions to science and engineering, most notably his work with alternating current, died in relative obscurity, despite his monumental influence on modern technology. In this historical image from 1930, Trofim Lysenko, then head of the Lenin Academy of Agricultural Sciences, inspects wheat fields near Odessa, Ukraine. Lysenko promoted controversial agricultural methods that, despite their widespread adoption in the Soviet Union, contributed to significant crop failures. These failed techniques exacerbated the famine that devastated millions in the Soviet Union during that time. Finally, we see the first ever subway ride at Edgware Road Station in London, 1862. This marks a significant milestone in urban transportation, leading to the vast subway networks that are essential to modern city life today. In this iconic photo from the 1960s, a group of typing students sits in a training hall, their faces covered by masks as they take a typing exam. This rigorous method was designed to build tactile memory and boost both speed and accuracy, forcing typists to rely solely on the sense of touch. Flashback to December 5th, 1933, the historic night Prohibition ended. The image captures a bar bursting with celebration as Americans toast to the return of legal alcohol sales after 13 long, dry years. Glasses clink, smiles abound, and relief is palpable in a nation eager to regain its freedom to drink. Next, we revisit the 1995 trial of O.J. Simpson, dubbed the trial of the century. Accused of murdering his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, one of the pivotal moments was the glove test. The gloves found at the crime scene were presented as evidence, but shockingly, they didn't fit Simpson's hands. This led defense attorney Johnny Cochran to famously declare, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." This line became a defining moment in the trial, leading to Simpson's controversial acquittal and dividing public opinion. Fast forward to the early 2000s in Kabul, Afghanistan. A child's drawing starkly illustrates the violent realities of life during the Taliban regime, with figures involved in brutal executions. This haunting artwork reflects the trauma that marked the childhoods of many in a nation engulfed by conflict. In 1921, Ukraine faced a devastating famine. In a remote village called Blahoveshchenko, hunger reached such extremes that a young boy, driven by sheer desperation, committed an unspeakable act. He killed and consumed his 3-year-old brother to survive. This tragic incident serves as a harrowing testament to one of the worst humanitarian crises of the era, affecting millions across the Soviet Union. A more serene yet nostalgic moment can be seen in Glasgow, Scotland, in 1955. A lamplighter with a long pole ignites a gas lamp on a city street. This task, common across Europe and America before electric lighting, symbolizes a fading era, as lamplighters soon became obsolete. The north face of the Eiger in 1957 witnessed a tragic climb by Stefano Lonhi. Trapped on a ledge in freezing conditions, he radioed his last words, fame, Freddo, hunger, cold, before succumbing to the elements. Despite courageous rescue efforts, Lonhi's body remained on the mountain for over 2 years, a grim reminder of the perils of mountaineering. The last known photograph of Nikola Tesla was taken on January 1st, 1943, just days before his passing. A pioneer of alternating current and radio frequency innovations, Tesla's brilliance was often overshadowed and unappreciated during his time. He died alone, impoverished in a New York hotel room, leaving behind an unmatched legacy of scientific achievements. In 1930, Trofim Lysenko, a controversial Soviet scientist, stood in a wheat field near Odessa, Ukraine. He measured the crop's growth, confident in his pseudoscientific claims that nature followed communist principles. Lysenko's flawed methods led to widespread crop failures, contributing to a famine that claimed nearly 3.9 million lives. Finally, we take a trip to London in 1862 as the first ever subway train departed from Edgware Road Station. This marked the beginning of a new era in urban transportation, revolutionizing how people moved in bustling cities. We continue our journey underground in London, circa 1862. The Edgware Road Station was part of the inaugural line of the London Underground, designed to alleviate the city's bustling street congestion. In its early years, steam-powered trains rumbled through the tunnels, swiftly becoming a lifeline for Londoners seeking a faster, more efficient commute. Fast forward to Hanoi, Vietnam, 1970. This haunting photo captures a young Vietnamese soldier lighting a cigarette for an older man, both relying on crutches after losing a leg. Behind them, a solemn sign reads, Cemetery of 45 Students Massacred by an American Bomb on March 16, 1965. It serves as a powerful reminder of the brutal toll of war, particularly on the innocent. In 1992, Gainesville, Georgia witnessed a chilling scene of racial tension. During a Ku Klux Klan protest, a surprising interaction occurred. A child in Klan robes approached a black state police officer. The officer, with his shield lowered to the ground, watched as the child curiously reached out to touch his reflection in the shield. The image captures a fleeting yet powerful moment of innocence amidst a backdrop of deep-seated hatred. Moving to Yorkshire, England, in 1943. A group of young men, known as the Bevan Boys, prepared to descend into Markham Colliery's coal mines. Named after Ernest Bevan, the British Minister of Labour, these boys were recruited to address a coal shortage critical to the war effort. Instead of serving on the front lines, they endured grueling labor underground, fueling the fight against Nazi Germany. This 1915 photograph marks one of the earliest selfies in history, taken by a daring World War I biplane pilot mid-flight. It highlights the bravery of aviators who performed reconnaissance, aerial combat, and bombing missions over enemy lines. Soviet space dogs Belka and Strelka made history in 1960. This image shows their return to Earth, removed from the spacecraft by 2 Soviet handlers. Successfully completing an orbit, They were the first animals to be sent into space and safely brought back, paving the way for human space exploration. Residents of Hanoi, North Vietnam in 1967 huddled in makeshift shelters, waiting out yet another air raid during the Vietnam War. With sirens blaring overhead, the people sought refuge in sidewalk sewers, emerging only when the danger had passed. These moments of fear and resilience became an all-too-common reality for many civilians during the conflict. A tragedy struck New York City on July 28, 1945. A B-25 bomber, navigating through thick fog, crashed into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building. The impact ignited a fire, causing significant damage to the upper floors. In total, 14 lives were lost, both crew members and building workers, marking one of the most shocking incidents in the iconic skyscraper's history. A lighter moment in American culture was captured at the White House. Nancy Reagan, First Lady of the United States, sits playfully on Mr. T's lap, giving him a peck on the forehead as he dons a Santa Claus costume. The unusual encounter blended politics, pop culture, and the holiday spirit in an unforgettable photograph. It was December 1983 at the White House during a festive Christmas celebration. When Santa Claus arrived, played by Mr. T, there was hesitation among the attendees to sit on his lap. Then, with a warm smile, First Lady Nancy Reagan broke the ice, perching herself on his lap and planting a kiss on his forehead. This spontaneous gesture turned into a light-hearted, unforgettable moment that embodied the spirit of the holiday season. Now we turn to Harry Houdini, the legendary escape artist. Bound by chains and under the watchful eye of a police officer, Houdini prepared for one of his iconic escapes on Harvard Bridge. With a daring leap into the frigid waters, he captivated onlookers, who anxiously awaited his emergence. Houdini's incredible feats of freedom not only tested the limits of human endurance, but also cemented his status as the world's most famous escapologist. The next photo is hauntingly tragic. Istvan Reiner, a 4-year-old boy, smiles gently in a studio portrait wearing the striped uniform of a Nazi concentration camp prisoner. Istvan's innocent face stands in stark contrast to the horror that awaited him at Auschwitz, where he would tragically lose his life during the Holocaust. The photo is a poignant reminder of the innocence lost amid one of history's darkest chapters. In 1974, Philippe Petit performed an audacious high-wire walk between the Twin Towers in New York City. At 1,312 feet above ground, Petit crossed the wire without any safety equipment, spending a breathtaking 45 minutes suspended in the air. Balancing and performing acrobatics, he stunned the crowds below, creating an unforgettable moment in the history of daring feats. Another shocking moment occurred in 1964 at the Monson Motor Lodge in St. Augustine, Florida. As protesters, both black and white, gathered at the motel's pool in protest of segregation, James Brock, the motel owner, resorted to a disturbing act. In a bid to disperse the protest, he poured acid into the water, sparking outrage. The incident followed Brock's refusal to serve Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., resulting in King's arrest and amplifying the fight for civil rights. In 1948, George McLaurin made history as the first black student admitted to the University of Oklahoma. Yet, segregation laws forced him into a humiliating reality. He had to sit apart from his white classmates in classrooms, cafeterias, and libraries. Despite the isolation, McLaurin's determination to receive a higher education marked a significant step toward breaking racial barriers in academia. Princess Diana created a historic moment when she shook hands with an AIDS patient without wearing gloves. At a time when fear and misinformation about HIV/AIDS were rampant, Diana's simple gesture challenged misconceptions and reduced stigma surrounding the disease. Her compassionate act at an AIDS care center became a powerful symbol of empathy and understanding. The 1960s were a time of innovation, even at 30,000 feet. Lufthansa, the German airline, became renowned for serving draft beer on board its flights. By offering passengers a taste of German culture through sophisticated meals and traditional beverages, including the famous draft beer, Lufthansa earned a reputation for luxury air travel. In Belgium in 1920, coal miners were crammed into elevators at the end of their grueling shifts. These brave workers toiled under harsh, hazardous conditions deep underground, often enduring long hours in confined spaces. The image of these men packed tightly in elevators speaks to the challenging realities of a labor force that fueled industrial growth in Europe. Coal mining fueled Belgium's economy during the Industrial Revolution. In this 1920 photo, Belgian miners cram into elevators after grueling shifts deep underground. These workers risked their lives daily, driving industrial progress under harsh and dangerous conditions. Mining was not just a job, but a lifeline for an evolving nation. In Manhattan, 1918, two young girls are seen delivering blocks of ice. Traditionally a man's job, this work changed dramatically during World War I as women stepped into roles previously reserved for men. The shortage of male labor sparked a significant shift in the U.S. labor market, with women breaking barriers and redefining the workforce. In 1966, the crew of Apollo 1 was captured in a moment of solemnity, kneeling in prayer beside their command module, hoping for a successful mission. Tragically, just months later, on January 27, 1967, astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger B. Chaffee perished in a launch pad fire during a routine test, marking one of NASA's darkest days. A 1941 Japanese anti-British propaganda poster mocks British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, depicting him alongside two women holding their noses in disgust. The poster's acronym, WC, simultaneously refers to Churchill's initials and to Water Closet, a derogatory play aimed at humiliating the British leader during the height of World War II tensions. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, infamous outlaws of the Great Depression, are seen playfully posing with a rifle in this rare photo. Known for bank heists and shootouts, they often left behind cameras filled with candid shots like this one. When these images were published, they fueled Bonnie and Clyde's transformation into folk legends, capturing the public's imagination. This chilling 1925 photo shows a young girl visiting her twin sister's grave. Her sister had died in a tragic fire the year before. Yet, in the water's reflection beside the girl, an eerie figure appears, believed by many to be the spirit of her twin. Whether it's a trick of light or something more, the photo evokes a deep sense of loss and mystery. The interior of a gas chamber at Auschwitz, Poland, is a haunting reminder of the Holocaust atrocities. The visible scratches on the walls bear witness to the victims' desperate final moments, as over 1 million people, mostly Jews, were systematically murdered between 1940 and 1945 in this largest Nazi extermination camp. A 1917 aerial photo from World War I captures a gas attack in the Somme region of France. Chemical weapons, including mustard gas, devastated soldiers in the trenches, causing irreversible injuries and deaths. This inhumane tactic left lasting scars on those who survived, changing the face of warfare forever. In 1945, a disturbing scene unfolded moments after the liberation of Dachau concentration camp in Germany. Former prisoners, enraged by the horrors they endured, are seen about to execute an SS guard with a shovel, while an American soldier looks the other way. The guard, notorious for terrorizing inmates, became a symbol of vengeance in the chaotic aftermath of liberation. The Night Witches, fearless female Soviet pilots of World War II, flew nightly bombing missions against Nazi forces in 1941. Silent and undetected, they would cut their engines to glide toward their targets. These brave women of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment became one of the most feared and respected groups of the war. On March 11, 2011, Japan was rocked by a devastating earthquake and tsunami. The 9.0 magnitude quake triggered waves up to 131 feet high, leading to the collapse of 3 reactors at Fukushima. In this photo, a survivor cries amid the rubble that was once her home. With over 20,000 deaths, it remains one of the most catastrophic natural and nuclear disasters in recent history. During World War I, nurses in France worked in trenches dug between hospital wards to protect patients and staff from bombardment. These trenches were a stark reminder of the constant danger faced by medical personnel who provided care near the front lines. The last known photo of rapper Tupac Shakur, taken just 20 minutes before his death in a 1996 drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, captures the moment before tragedy struck. His death, shrouded in mystery, sparked widespread speculation and controversy that still persists today. The Beatles met Muhammad Ali in Miami in 1964, a historic encounter uniting two cultural icons of the era. The Fab Four were in the U.S. for their first American tour, while Ali was preparing for his famous bout against Sonny Liston. The meeting was a clash of worlds that symbolized the spirit of the 1960s. During John F. Kennedy's funeral in November 1963, a rarely seen photo captures the solemnity of world leaders and American citizens as they paid their final respects to the fallen president. This somber image represents the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter in U.S. history. In 1918, American farmer John Mintz was tarred and feathered by a mob, accused of having pro-German sympathies during World War I. Anti-German sentiment was strong in the U.S., leading to violence and discrimination against German Americans. In 1921, President Warren G. Harding greeted disabled World War I veterans, including a man without legs, supported by a makeshift wheelboard. The photo highlights the early efforts to address the needs of veterans before comprehensive care systems were established. On February 11, 1990, Nelson Mandela walked free from prison after 27 years of incarceration, greeted by a jubilant crowd with a clenched fist. This iconic moment marked the beginning of the end for apartheid and set the stage for Mandela's eventual presidency. During the Vietnam War, American F-100 jets unleashed bullpup missiles aimed at North Vietnamese targets. Manually guided by pilots, these missiles were used extensively, with over 5,000 deployed in support of South Vietnam's efforts. Santos Dumont's 14 bis aeroplane took flight in 1906, demonstrating controlled, sustained flight for the first time. This historic moment in Paris marked a milestone in aviation history, proving that machines heavier than air could fly. On April 19, 1995, Timothy McVeigh detonated a truck bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. The explosion claimed 168 lives, including 19 children, and injured over 600 others, marking one of the most devastating terrorist attacks in U.S. history. During World War II, many families were separated by the conflict. The return of prisoners of war often drew large crowds as anxious relatives searched for loved ones among the returning soldiers. These heart-wrenching reunions marked a bittersweet end to the horrors of war, as hope and grief intertwined at crowded train stations and ports. The Mona Lisa, along with many other masterpieces, was hidden during World War II to protect it from Nazi looting. This photo captures the famous painting being carefully unpacked after the war's end. For years, these works were sheltered in secret locations across France, and their return to the Louvre signaled a reclaiming of cultural heritage amidst the ruins of war. In 1944, the crew of the USS Miami posed with over 1,000 shells and cartridges after bombarding the Palau Islands during the Pacific Campaign. The Miami was among the first ships equipped with new radar technology, enhancing the precision of naval strikes. The Palau Islands witnessed fierce fighting, and the crew's readiness reflected the intensity of the Pacific battles. On July 18, 1984, tragedy struck at a McDonald's in San Ysidro, California. Wendy Flanagan is seen being escorted out by police after a gunman opened fire inside the restaurant, claiming 21 lives and injuring 19 others. The mass shooting shocked the nation and marked one of the deadliest events in U.S. history at the time, highlighting the growing concern over gun violence. Racial tensions ran high on August 30, 1963, as the first African-American family, the Bakers, moved into Del Mar Village in Fulcroft, Pennsylvania. Young boys can be seen insulting Horace Baker's family, a stark reminder of the resistance to racial integration during the segregation era. The struggle for civil rights was met with hostility in many communities, underscoring the challenges of achieving equality. On August 31, 1997, the world was devastated by the death of Princess Diana. In the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, her car, pursued by paparazzi, crashed into a pillar. The wreckage, captured in this photo, speaks to the tragic loss of Diana, her partner Dodi Fayed, and driver Henri Paul. Diana's death shocked the globe and remains a moment etched in history, marked by an outpouring of grief. In 1912, Jim Thorpe faced an unexpected setback at the Olympics. Just before his event, his shoes disappeared. Determined to compete, Thorpe improvised by borrowing one shoe from a teammate and finding another in the trash. Despite the mismatched footwear, Thorpe won the gold medal in the decathlon, cementing his status as one of the greatest athletes in history. The FBI's massive fingerprint files in Washington, D.C. are seen here, stacked to the ceiling in this photo from 1944. The agency began collecting fingerprints systematically in the early 20th century, amassing over 60 million records by the end of World War II. This growing database became a crucial tool for solving cases and identifying criminals across the nation. On May 14, 1998, all of Times Square seemed to pause for the final episode of Seinfeld. The beloved sitcom, famously known as the show about nothing, had captured audiences for 9 seasons. The finale drew over 76 million viewers, who eagerly tuned in to witness the fate of their favorite characters, marking a historic moment in television history. At the height of the logging industry, the Hudson River became the main artery for transporting logs from the Adirondacks to Glens Falls. This photo captures thousands of logs floating downstream during the Great Boom, as over 450,000 logs were sent each year. This vital process sustained the sawmills of Glens Falls, making it a major lumber center of the era. On April 5, 1976, during a protest against school desegregation in Boston, a dramatic photo shows Ted Landsmark being held back while an attacker charges toward him with an American flag. Landsmark, who was passing by unaware of the protest, was caught in the chaos, highlighting the intensity of racial tensions as Boston struggled with desegregation. In 1989, tensions erupted in Northern Ireland, as seen in this iconic photo of an Irish teenager confronting 2 armed British soldiers. Taken on August 14th, the image captures the anger and frustration of local youth during the decades-long conflict between Irish nationalists and Unionists. For many, British troops were a symbol of oppression, and this standoff became a powerful representation of the strife that marked the Troubles. The final departure of prisoners from Alcatraz in 1963 marked the closure of one of America's most infamous prisons. Located on an isolated island in San Francisco Bay, Alcatraz operated from 1934 to 1963, housing notorious criminals like Al Capone and Robert Stroud. In 1962, 3 prisoners staged a daring escape, disappearing into the night and never to be seen again, adding to the mystique of the Rock. In Amarillo, Texas, during the 1960 presidential campaign, vice presidential candidate Lyndon B. Johnson is seen shouting at a nearby plane's pilots, demanding they cut the engines so that John F. Kennedy could speak. Kennedy, standing beside him, attempted to calm Johnson, highlighting the contrasting temperaments of the 2 future leaders. This rare image from the Korean War armistice negotiations, which took place from 1950 to 1953, shows a North Korean soldier reading an issue of Time magazine outside the conference room. Western publications like this were banned in North Korea, making this moment a striking anomaly amid one of the Cold War's most intense conflicts. The 1968 relocation of the Abu Simbel temples in Aswan, Egypt, was one of the greatest engineering feats of the 20th century. Built by Pharaoh Ramses II in the 13th century BC, these colossal structures were moved to save them from being submerged by the construction of a dam. The massive effort was a testament to human ingenuity and dedication to preserving ancient history. Louis Victor Ballet, the last surviving soldier of the Battle of Waterloo, is seen here at 103 years old. He fought in the historic battle on June 18, 1815, which marked the end of Napoleon's rule in Europe. Ballet's age and presence made him a living link to one of history's most decisive battles. 2 Armenian women, part of the resistance militias during the Armenian genocide, stand defiantly in this 1915 photograph. Between 1915 and 1923, approximately 1.5 million Armenians were systematically killed by the Ottoman Empire. These brave women fought to protect their people during one of history's darkest episodes of persecution. Jean-Bedel Bokassa proclaimed himself Emperor of Bokassa I of the Central African Republic in 1977, staging a lavish coronation ceremony that consumed one-third of the nation's annual budget. The extravagance sparked global criticism, highlighting the stark contrast between the leader's opulence and his country's widespread poverty. This 1877 photo of Seven Dials, London, showcases the bustling commercial life of the historic district. The area was known for its diversity and commerce, featuring a mix of old clothing shops and other trades that captured the energy of 19th-century London. In 1996, President Bill Clinton was photographed embracing Monica Lewinsky during a Democratic event in Washington, D.C. 2 years later, revelations about their affair led to one of the biggest political scandals in U.S. history, resulting in Clinton's impeachment by the House of Representatives. The M497 Black Beetle, an experimental jet train, set the U.S. rail speed record in 1966, reaching 183 miles per hour. Equipped with jet engines from a B-36 bomber, this ambitious project aimed to revolutionize high-speed rail travel, though it never saw mass production. George W. Ferris steam-powered Ferris wheel, unveiled at the 1893 Chicago Columbian Exposition, stood 264 feet tall. Built to rival the Eiffel Tower, it became the fair's main attraction and marked the birth of a now iconic amusement park staple. In 1963, a young Bill Clinton shook hands with President John F. Kennedy at the White House during an event for American youth senators. This moment left a lasting impression on the 16-year-old, inspiring him to pursue a career in politics and eventually become the 42nd President of the United States. In 1963, Che Guevara was photographed by Burt Glenn for Life magazine during a mission in Cuba. Limited in access, Glenn managed to capture one of the most iconic images of the revolutionary leader, a moment that became synonymous with Guevara's enduring legacy. Neil Armstrong's family watched as the Apollo 11 launch unfolded at Cape Canaveral on July 16, 1969. As Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins embarked on their journey to the moon, millions of people worldwide tuned in, witnessing the historic event that would redefine humanity's place in the universe. This photo, taken on May 19, 1962, shows Marilyn Monroe with President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert Kennedy. The image was captured during Monroe's famous Happy Birthday, Mr. President performance, which fueled rumors of an alleged affair with the president. Martin Luther King Jr. is seen playing pool in this 1966 photo, revealing a lighter side of the civil rights leader. Despite his intense schedule and historic role, King found brief moments of relaxation, showing the humanity behind the icon. The ruins of San Francisco after the April 1906 earthquake and fire are captured in this photo. The 7.8 magnitude quake, followed by devastating fires, left 80% of the city destroyed, killing approximately 3,000 people and displacing over 250,000 residents. During his first inaugural parade in 1953, President Dwight D. Eisenhower was playfully lassoed by cowboy entertainer Monty Montana. As the crowd cheered, Eisenhower, a World War II hero, entered office with promises to end the Korean War and combat communism. A whimsical invasion of Daleks from Doctor Who took place in Cardiff, Wales, in 1964. This promotional event, featuring children and local police, brought the sci-fi series to life, creating a moment that delighted fans of the now legendary British show. U.S. troops were deployed to Los Angeles in 1992 during riots sparked by the acquittal of 4 officers accused of beating Rodney King. The 6 days of violence, looting, and destruction resulted in over 60 deaths and billions of dollars in damages, underscoring deep racial tensions in America. The Harlem Hellfighters, an all-black unit during World War I, fought with extraordinary bravery. Despite their heroism overseas, they returned home to face segregation and discrimination under the Jim Crow laws, revealing the stark contradiction of American democracy at the time. On August 9, 1974, President Richard Nixon bid farewell to the White House staff shortly before resigning due to the Watergate scandal. In his final speech, Nixon expressed hope for the nation's healing, marking a historic moment of accountability in American politics.